Ukraine and Russia might be over 8,000 kilometers away from Nigeria, but make no mistake, the war between both countries will have and is already having effects on Nigeria on different levels. First, on the citizens living in Ukraine and perhaps in Russia as well, on our mainstay of the economy, oil, gas prices, and so much more, which is why it's important to pay attention to this now and hope that it doesn't escalate. But what are the issues at stake and how do we find our way around this? This morning, we're joined on the program by Honorable Yusuf Buba. I mean, you just saw the National Assembly and some of the proceedings. He's the Chairman, Foreign Affairs Committee of the House of Representatives. Joins us via Zoom from Abuja to get a sense of what's being done at that level. We also have joined us Professor Khalifa Dikwa, who is a Professor of International Relations. He joins us from our Maiduguri studio. And also, Jesuni Omoyi is a student of Kharkiv National School of Economics. He joins us from Kiev in Ukraine. You might call that ground zero this morning. Well, gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the program. And I'd like to begin with Jesuni Omoyi because it's important to get what is exactly happening on the ground right now. It's been about 24 hours since that invasion. Can you describe to us, I mean, what has been going through your mind and what's happening on ground right now?
Well, right now, we are monitoring the situation. Kyiv generally is also being attacked. We had 2 recent bombings. That's very early this morning. But basically, the military strikes are targeted towards military infrastructure. So residential apartments and general social life is not being attacked in any way. So the major targets for these airstrikes and these drone strikes are actually military infrastructures. However, there would be some civilians definitely who would be, victims of some of these things, but they are not the targets nonetheless. Generally, also other regions of Ukraine has also been attacked. We have Odessa being attacked. We have Kharkov, Kyiv. And what's currently happening right now is that a lot of students are, walking to get to the border of Poland, and so that they can have some sort of safety in Poland right now. So most students are going through the city of Lviv, which is a direct, a train ride to or a bus ride to the border of Poland. And then from there, the Polish government has been very supportive, and they have offered to open their borders to African, immigrants, especially those who are students, and give a 15-day visa, where you would be allowed to stay there for 15 days, and also they would provide you with meal, with an accommodation, and with some basic health, supplies in case you've been affected by the war. So generally, I would say that the fight is still fairly on, but we are also monitoring and seeing what would come out of it. At the end of the day, we believe that it would all end up in very, very peaceful negotiations. And at the end of the day, we believe that Putin would relax on these sanctions.
Certainly the hope of a lot of people right now. But we understand that there are thousands, 12,000 Nigerian students in Ukraine. So clearly we have a lot of citizens there that we need to ensure that they are well protected. How would you describe the support you've gotten from Nigerian authorities represented in Ukraine, Ukraine primarily now, I'm not even talking Russia, but how would you describe the support, the help you've gotten?
Well, I would say it's fairly okay. Before the war started, I spoke with the ambassador, and he also was of the reasoning that we should remain calm. Okay. However, we tried to reach him yesterday through various platforms, but unfortunately, and we also tried to reach the embassy, but we couldn't get any response. And I also believe that they were trying, maybe they had a lot on their hands at that time, and they were trying to get as much information and intel that we needed to provide an information. But in general, I would say that they've been supportive, and of course, looking at how the government has also responded in terms of creating the need to have an evacuation process, as long as with the alliance with Air Peace to get some Nigerians out of here, I think it's a very, very commendable idea, and I would love to praise them for it as well.
Well, it's only in the face of the fact that, generally there's that word out there that the airports are shut, and you also talked about the fact that some Nigerians are moving towards Poland to seek some sort of reprieve or protection for themselves. So, with the government promising to evacuate Nigerians from Ukraine and the airports shut, it definitely looks or sounds like a quagmire right there. What then are the options? What are the options for Nigerian students right now, especially when you say some are moving to Poland?
Poland, yeah. Well, when you're having a situation like this that is tense, the first thing is to remain calm and not panic. For people who are in residential, areas, I think the best option right now is to remain calm and stay indoors. Like I said earlier, the attack is not focused on residential areas. That's not where the attack is focused on. It is military infrastructure. But obviously, there will be civilians who will be victims of that strike. So the bombs and the airstrikes are not targeted into residential areas and general social life. So if you're in Kyiv or in any place in Ukraine as a Nigerian student, the best thing to do is to stay indoors right now, especially if where you are is not in any form of serious attack right now. And you have to also think of how the government is responding to this, and we have to be patient with the government because, if the airspace is short, there's nothing they can do. And so I believe that right now the Ukrainian authorities are currently, shutting down the airspace because they are also trying to save lives, and they are also trying to, protect the risk of another airstrike that of which the civilians or the people who are taking these flights would be victims of. So, but I also believe that maybe in the next 2 to 3 days, the airspace will be open because it's not only Nigerian government that is looking on how to evacuate their students. China is also thinking about that. And I do understand that there are also some countries that are also trying to take the same decision. So definitely there would be a consensus, I believe, that would come at some point where there will be an exception for diplomatic interventions. There will be an exception for diplomatic, interference from countries who are seeking to evacuate their nationals. So I believe that is what is going to come to be. And if Ukraine gets a lot of requests for that, I believe that they can open the airspace just for that purpose, not for anything else, not for commercial flights. But pending that time, the best thing to do is to stay indoors and still monitor the situation. And we would believe that with time, it will get better. Then if you're also thinking of going to Poland, like I said, Poland has opened borders for Nigerian students. However, we have to also be careful about the road situation because it's safer to be inside than to be on the road where you don't understand what's going to happen, and the code is also still there. So these are factors that you have to consider, or you have to think about when you're making decisions right now. But if you're calm and you don't panic, I believe that you would make some quality decisions, and at the end of the day, we'll be able to get out of this very well.
Okay, we'll come to Honorable and Prof in a moment, but just before that, Jason, I'd like to know there are those who are of the opinion that, the government responded too late. I recall that I think one of the members on the floor was saying, well, at this point it might be too late. Do you have a sense that things should have or could have moved faster in terms of the response and the evacuation? And would you be willing to be evacuated at some point?
Well, I'm not going to put a fault on the government, honestly, about the response time, because then again, there were a lot of conflicting information before the strike actually happened. Internally, everything was going so fine, and there was constant, information from the Ukrainian government that we should be calm and everything is going fine. Okay, so I would also believe that the government was also trying to monitor the situation and not make knee-jerk decisions. So I'm not going to totally put the government at fault of this, because we were all monitoring the situations, like I said. The only countries that tried to make an evacuation process were countries that had, like some embassies in even Kyiv, and there were very few. I think Canada did not even fully evacuate their nationals. They only moved their in-staff in the embassies to another city. So I would not put any blame on the government. I would say that every sovereign country were trying to monitor the situation and to see, the extent of the escalation. And now that something has happened, I can see the response from the government, which I had praised early on. So I'm not going to fault the government on that. I'm not going to put a blame on the government. I believe that it was being monitored and they were trying to make the best decisions backdoors while all of these deliberations were going on. And so the question on if I want to be evacuated, yes, I am willing to be evacuated right now. If I'm hoping that it comes, and I believe that there could be a consensus between the Ukrainian government and all of the countries that are willing to evacuate their nationals, and we can make a consensus from that, and hopefully we save the lives of people who are just students here, and who also, and get rid of the fear that is in the people's hearts, because right now there's a lot of fear in people's hearts.
All right.